What's up, people? You guys already know McCall's Fall 2023 patterns just dropped today, Friday, September the 15th. So we're going to talk about it because some of these are reissued patterns, but I do want to mention that even though the vintage patterns are authentic reproduction, I'm going to tell you the old pattern. Now, most of these reproduction patterns I do not have. I'm going to grab them. But if you, someone who actually picks up vintage pattern, already have it, then you already know what I'm talking about. All right. So if that's some content you would like to see, please continue to watch. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you guys the new McCall's Fall 2023 patterns, and these are decent. All right, now if you missed my video of the new look patterns that I said that they are repeat that I posted yesterday, these are not a repeat. They are reproduced vintage patterns. All right. So vintage, authentic reproduction patterns. So they did not try to fool you or trick you. They let you know that it's reproduced. All right. So I'm going to try to give you guys the old pattern as well as the new pattern if I have already found it or I remember seeing something similar to this. All right. Now, if they are the exact same, I'm going to tell you guys that. But if they're similar, I will make sure to mention they are similar. Because I know you guys get mad at me when I be like, this is the exact same pattern as this. You'll be like, why did you say that? So, just so you know, if they're exactly the same, I'm going to say it. If they are similar, I'll be sure to say that as well. All right? Thank you guys later. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. But if you are new to the channel, welcome. Hello, Ciao, Guten, Aloha, Hola, Konnichiwa, Gwaan, Sabonani, Shalom, Bonjour. If you are returning, you guys know what to do by now. Go get you something to drink and a quick snack. Come on back so we could go ahead and get into this video. We're going to try to keep this very, very brief, but give you all the details that you need. So I'm going to give you the news that you can use, all right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. But because these are all McCall patterns, I'm just going to tell you guys the number. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the first one. First one is 8429. Now, one thing I'm going to say before I get started is Brittany did sneak peek a few of these. So I'm going to leave the sneak peek from Brittany J. Jones in the description box below, as well as on the end screen, so you can see the ones that she sneak peeked as well. All right, but I have the full collection that I am going to show you guys and tell you which ones I will be picking up and which ones I'm gonna definitely pass on. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. First one is 8429. This is a Mrs. Top and Skirt pattern by Laura Ashley. It's a vintage McCall's 1970s top and skirt sewing pattern. The top is view A and view B. You did hear me say top, so this is not a dress, even though it looks like a dress. So both tops have ties at the back of the neck. It has button band as well. View B has pleated ruffles, and then it also has a gather skirt and pockets in the side front seams and left side seam zipper. View B has ruffles at the bottom. It has side front seams and a lower ruffle as well. Like I mentioned, this is authentic vintage reproduction pattern as well. It is an easy to sew pattern for this one. Now, one thing I will mention is in terms of this pattern, the skirt is exactly the same pattern as McCall's 8306. All right. So the skirt is that pattern, and you can still see this pattern on the McCall's, or I'm not going to say McCall's website. It is all Simplicity. All the brands are under Design Group. So you can still see it for yourself, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, that the skirt pattern is McCall's 8306. Now, in terms of the top, it is, like they have mentioned, is a vintage reproduction pattern, authentic, so they're not changing anything. If you look at the line art, it looks vintage, all right? Just keeping it 100 with you guys. But for the top, the vintage pattern is McCall's 5614. I actually have this pattern in my stash. I don't know why. Don't ask me. All right. But let's go ahead and talk about in terms of the sizing, because this is an easy to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's 8 to 16 and then 18 to 26 on the second pattern. Now, when we get over to the fabric options, you guys could definitely see so many fabric options. Brittany also talked about the fabric options being chambray, challis, cotton blends, lightweight corduroy, lightweight cotton, just to name a few of those as well. I'm just going to put it up on the screen so you could see the back of the pattern, because you guys like to see that as well. So basically this is $84.29 for this pattern. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, which is $84.30. So this pattern is a Mrs. Robe and nightgown pattern for sure. So let's go ahead and get into the description for this pattern. So it's, once again, it is a vintage 1970s reproduction, authentic reproduction pattern. It is another pattern by Laura Ashley as well for this pattern, but getting into it, it's high-waisted front wrap robe. It has neck and sleeve ruffles, tie, belt, drawn through the seam opening, and then the sleeves have gathered cap and lower tucks. So for this one, I mean, it's very interesting as well. It is, you know, a reproduction pattern. So in terms of the old pattern, it is McCall's 4843. If you have this pattern, I do not have the 4843, but to be honest, I don't wear a lot of night robes or night gowns. So I think for me, I would definitely pass on this pattern. But if you are one who wears, you know, they call it like house gowns or house gowns, not even night gowns, but house robes, night gowns. I'm just going to say, if you're much older than me, then you know what I'm explaining and what I'm trying to get at. But for me, I'm good with like a tank top and some boxer shorts going to bed. I'm good with that. And then, you know, bra and panties, always a good thing, because less is sometimes best. That's all I'm going to say. Get your head out the gutter. But let's go ahead and get into the next pattern. All right, so the next pattern is 8431. So this one is a Mrs. top and skirt pattern. Once again, it's a vintage, authentic reproduction pattern from the 70s. They're bringing a lot of these 70s patterns back, but they did put some 90s in there as well that I'm excited about. But let's go ahead and get into this one. So this one is a top and skirt sewing pattern. It has stitch trimmed top with puff sleeves and 2 length ties in the front. And then the short sleeve top has the elastic and the casing, which is view A on this pattern. The skirt is 2 lengths. It has shaped front seaming and a back zipper. Now the zipper for this is an exposed or all-purpose zipper. So not a invisible zipper, but if you want to use an invisible zipper, you can, to each his own. But for me, I will probably use an exposed zipper instead of a invisible zipper. I don't know. I have to have the pattern in order to see which one I would prefer, depending on that waistband. All right. And like I mentioned, it's an authentic vintage reproduction pattern that includes additional sizings and cutting layouts and all that good stuff. So in terms of the pattern, the skill level is easy to sew for this one. In terms of the sizing, the first pattern is 8 to 16 and that second pattern is 18 to 26 on that second pattern. Now this pattern does remind me of a previous issued pattern. I couldn't find that one, to be honest with you, that reissue pattern. So I'm just going to skip that and let you guys know at a different time. All right, moving over to the next pattern is 8432. And this pattern is a Mrs. Pants vintage 90s pattern. So for this pattern, it's, you know, the pants have front pleats. It also has front pocket opening, back darts, and you could do like with or without the stirrup. The stirrups are the things that goes at the bottom of your feet that we wore back in the 90s, all right? I used to hate them. I used to hate them, but it's like a little U that goes at the bottom of your pants to kind of, it kind of reminds me of kind of like suspenders. But for your feet. Instead of suspenders at the bottom of your pants or your waistband, it's suspenders for your feet. If you get it, you get it. All right. All right, but let's go ahead and talk about the skill level. The skill level is easy to sew for this pattern. In terms of pattern sizing, there's 2 envelopes, 8 to 16 and 16 to 24 on the pattern for sure. Now I did not see which pattern this one is exactly alike. So I'm going to skip it because I'm going to be like, I don't know. I don't remember this like a 1970s pattern and then now it's being reissued, but I don't know. If you know, put it in the comment section below. But let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. The next pattern is 8433 and this is a Mrs. jacket. I like this 19s jacket. So basically I'm with Brittany. I would definitely pair 8432 and 8433 together as like a set. It makes sense to do it because both of these are vintage 90s pattern. But let's go ahead and get into the description for this pattern. It's a 1970s jacket. It's loose fitting line or unlined jacket with single front button closure, slightly extended shoulders, optional shoulder pads for sure. And then you have patch pockets in the front. View A has the optional blanket or overcast stitch trim. And then view B has the contrast shawl collar. View C has the notch collar, and all of the views are your vintage authentic reproduction pattern. Now, in terms of skill level, it's an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's 2 envelopes, 8 to 16 and 16 to 24. Now, if you remember, I have not been putting the back of the pattern up for a reason, and it's because these are all reproduced authentic vintage patterns. If you are interested in that, I'll put it up, but I'm just going to talk through them as well in terms of the fabrics, any type of fabric of your choosing. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, which is 84. So, let me go back to 8433 before I move over to the next pattern. So this pattern right here, in terms of the pattern that this one is reissued, it's a McCall's 5909. Was the 4 hour. So they say on that pattern, it says you can sew this jacket in 4 hours. I don't know. I don't know about sewing a jacket in 4 hours. I don't know. But I'm thinking that they're talking about just the sewing time and not the cutting time, but still, it depends on how much work you have to do with it. All right. Moving over to the next pattern. So the next pattern is 8434, which is a Mrs. knit dress. Now I can tell you that they have Mrs. and women's sizes. The women's size for this one is 8435. For the Mrs. The woman's size for this. Now this one is not a reproduce or a repeat pattern, but this is, let's go ahead and get into the description. This is a button front knit dress in 2 lengths. It has the square shaped neckline. Banding detail, sleeve variation. View A and View B have pockets and contrast band. And then View B has View B dress has the belt and purchase piping there as well. In terms of sizing, it's 2 sizes, 4 to 12 on the first pattern envelope and 12 to 20 on that second pattern envelope. Now, in terms of the woman's size that they have for this dress as well, you have 20W to 28W and then 30W to 38W on that second pattern. But yeah, you will need knit fabric in order to do this dress. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, which is a Brandy Joan pattern, which is 8436. So this is a Mrs. knit dress as well. It's more like a wrap dress to me, all right? So it's a long sleeve wrap front dress in 2 lengths. It has the square neckline, bra self, and then a narrow hem skirt and self ties. So this is an average to sew pattern as well. In terms of the sizing, you have 6 to 14 on the first pattern and then 16 to 24 on the second pattern. Now, in terms of the fabric that you would use, I already mentioned it. It will be knit because this is a knit dress. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. So the next pattern is 8437 for this pattern. And this is another Brandy Jones pattern, which is Mrs. Overalls, right? So let's go ahead and get into the details. It's a true wardrobe staple for this one. So it's floor length overalls with adjustable racer back straps Overall features the bib pockets, the front buckles, side snap closure, and of course your front and back pockets that you can definitely have the back pockets optional if you don't like butt pockets or whatever. But this is an average to sew pattern. In terms of the sizing for the pattern, the first envelope is 6 to 14 and that second envelope is 16 to 24. Now, in terms of the fabrics that you can use, I will definitely say like any type of twill would be good, chambray, cotton. You can use whatever fabric you want. Denim would be good, linen would be good. So you can use whatever fabric that you want as well. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. So the next pattern is McCall's 8438 and 8439. All right. So this is Mrs. and woman's coat pattern. All right. So for this pattern, let's get into the details. For this pattern, it's basically a high collar coat and vest. It have drop shoulder, side panels, and pocket and belt. Now this is an average to sew pattern. In terms of the sizing for the envelope, it's 2 envelopes for the Mrs. sizes. So it's 4 to 12 on the first pattern and then 12 to 20 on that second pattern. Now for the woman's envelope, you have 20W to 28W and then 30W to 38W as well. Now this pattern does remind me of a previous pattern from McCall's. And that pattern, I'm gonna say it reminds me, I didn't say it's the exact, I'm saying that it's similar. It's McCall's 7480, but it also is similar to a new look pattern that I cannot think of. I want to say that the pattern is new look 64 something, but I can't think of exactly those last 2 numbers. So if I could think of it while, you know, editing this video, I will definitely put it up on the screen. All right, but it does remind me of McCall's 7480 for this pattern. Now, in terms of fabric, let's go ahead and get into the fabric before you guys shoot me and like, Rochelle, you don't never tell us the fabrics that you can use, all right? So this one, you can use wool, flannel, wool blends, wool flannels. I mean, like you could definitely use whatever type of fabric that you want, depending on if you want it lightweight or heavyweight, all right? Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. So the next pattern, one of my favorites out of this collection, it's 8440, which is a unisex jacket. Let's go ahead and get into the description. It's a unisex jacket and sizes extra small through extra, extra large. So the jacket is 3 styles. It has your drop shoulders, the low elastic sleeves. It has front zipper closure and pockets. View B and View C have that contrast and front flap with the jean snaps. And then View C has a hood on it. Now, in terms of your sizing, like I mentioned, extra small to extra, extra large there. In terms of fabric, let's go ahead and get over to the fabric. So in terms of fabric, you could use any type of twill, nylon, ripstop, just to name a few. Do not forget that you will need some lining for this. But this one does remind me of a pattern that I have in my stash, y'all. It's McCall's 6850. Now, every view is not the same on this one, but 2 of the views remind me of that pattern. Now, one thing that I really like about McCall's 8440 is the color blocking. You can color block this pattern. So I do appreciate that about this pattern. All right, let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. So the next pattern is 8441, which is a men's jacket and pant pattern. Now, in terms of the description, now this one I could not find anywhere online or even in my pattern stash. So I don't think this one is a repeat. I think this one is a new traditional pattern. All right, let's go ahead and get into the description. So this is a jacket in 2 styles. It has kangaroo pocket, front zipper closure, and hood option. View B has your contrast sleeve panels. Pull-on pants have the elastic waist and pockets. And then View D pants have the contrast on the side panel. Both jackets and pants have purchased rib trim and your stretch piping. This is an average to sew pattern. A sew along will be featured for this one as well. In terms of the sizing for this pattern, it's your men's standard sizing, 34 to 42 on the first pattern and then 44 to 52 on that second pattern as well. All right, so that's this pattern. I didn't see anything similar to it like I mentioned, but let's go ahead and get into the next pattern. So the next pattern is 8442, which is a Mrs. and Men's lined vest. Now this pattern does remind me of a pattern that I'll get to here shortly, but let's go ahead and talk about this easy to sew lined vest. Unisex line vest, I should say. All right, let's get into the pattern description. So it's an easy to sew unisex vest and sizes extra small through extra large. The vest is 8 different styles. It has V neckline variation, optional pockets, and the back buckle. The back has a buckle belt as well. Like I mentioned, it's easy to sew. I already talked about the sizing for sure. Let's talk about the fabric. So in terms of the fabric, basically you can use whatever fabric that you want for this pattern, okay? So you can use chambray, challis, cotton blends, denim, flannel, gabardine, just to name a few, corduroy if you choose as well. Now, let's talk about what this pattern reminds me of. So if you are not following Anita by Designs, Anita is amazing. She's great, and man, she can make some dresses. But I want to talk about when she did a sew along for a vest. She did a vest for her late husband, Simo. And y'all, I just got emotional just thinking about it. But she did a vest for her husband, and that pattern is Simplicity 1506. And I'm going to drop that sew along in the description box below, as well as on the end screen, because you know, she did it for her husband, and man, it is amazing. And now they reproduced the same pattern for Simplicity 8442. All right. But before I get too emotional and start crying on this camera, we're not going to do that today. We go ahead and get over to the next pattern. All right. So the last pattern that I think this is the last pattern is 8443. So this is, yes, this is the last pattern. It is men's sleepwear. All right, y'all got me a little off towards the end. All right, it's 8443. So this is a men's sleepwear pattern, and it is the exact same pattern as another pattern. But first, let's go ahead and get into the pattern description. It's loose fitted wrap robe in 2 lengths. It features patch pockets and tie belt. Pullover night shirt and top. It has sleeve variations. Pull-on pants and shorts have the elastic waist as well. This is an easy to sew pattern. In terms of the sizing, small to 3XL, I should say, for this one. In terms of the fabrics, basically, like for the top, I would use knit for sure. But then in terms of like what you would use for like the robe or anything, you can use like any type of flannel. You can use chambray cotton, shearsucker, soft cottons, just to name a few. It's easy to sew. So let's talk about what it reminds me of. So this pattern is exactly the same as a previous pattern that I have in my stash. It's McCall's 6231. It's the exact same pattern for that pattern. All right. So McCall's 8443 is the exact same pattern as McCall's 6231. All right. Well, that's it for the McCall's Fall 2023 patterns. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comment section below which pattern you will be picking up yourself. All right. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. And since you made it this far, do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe button. Also, smash that notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So I'll catch you in the next video. And as always, keep sewing.